This presentation explores historical accounts and legends that include depictions of peril and disaster at sea. Viewer discretion is advised. The lookout scream was swallowed by the storm. Below on the rain-slicked deck, men scrambled, their hands raw from wrestling frozen ropes. They were fighting the waves, but they were about to face the sea itself. It began as a shadow, a patch of water that didn't move right, a darkness that rose from the abyss when it should have been sinking. It wasn't rock. It wasn't a whale. It was an island of living flesh, a mountain of muscle and malice that blotted out the deep. Then came the arms. Not two, not four, but a forest of them, thick as ancient trees, erupting from the churning water. They didn't just grab the ship, they embraced it. The hull groaned, thousand-year-old timber screaming as they were crushed like kindling. Men were plucked from the rigging, their cries vanishing into the maw of a creature whose beak, hidden in the center of that writhing chaos, could shear through steel. The ship was not sunk. It was pulled under, dragged into the crushing blackness, leaving behind nothing but a swirling vortex and a story no one would live to tell. This isn't just a scene from a Hollywood blockbuster. This is the primal fear that has haunted sailors for 1,000 years. The legend of a monster so vast, so powerful it could be mistaken for an island. The legend of the Kraken. But what if I told you the monster is real? What if I told you that right now, miles beneath the waves, a creature hunts in the dark with eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes on planet Earth? An animal that grows to the size of a school bus, propels itself with a jet of water powerful enough to sink a small boat, and fights its battles with tentacles lined not with suction cups, but with razor-sharp, swiveling hooks. We have a name for it: the giant squid. But is that all the Kraken was? A simple case of mistaken identity? Or is the truth far more terrifying? For centuries, this creature was pure myth. Now we have proof it exists, and that raises the most chilling question of all. If a monster this big could hide from us for so long, what else is down there still waiting to be found? To find the answer, we have to travel back in time. Back to the iron-willed sailors of the North, the Vikings. They were the masters of the Atlantic, but even they spoke in hushed tones of the horrors that lurked beneath the waves. They didn't call it the Kraken, not at first. In the 13th century Norse sagas, they described a monster known as the Hafgufa, the sea mist. This creature was so immense that sailors would mistake its back for a piece of land. According to the legend, the Hafgufa would feed by belching up a cloud of bait, a scent so alluring that entire schools of fish would swarm into its gaping mouth. Then the jaws would snap shut, and the island would disappear back into the depths. It was a passive hunter, a living, breathing trap the size of a mountain. But there was another monster in those sagas, a more active, more malevolent entity. They called it the Kraken. The name itself comes from the Old Norse word krak, meaning a crooked or twisted thing. Unlike the Hafgufa, the Kraken didn't wait for its prey. It hunted. The legends described it as a creature of colossal size, capable of encircling the largest longship with its immense arms. Its true danger, however, wasn't just its strength, but the aftermath of its presence. When the Kraken submerged, it was said to create a whirlpool so powerful it could doom any vessel caught in its pull, sucking ships and sailors down to a watery grave. For centuries, these were just stories, terrifying tales told around flickering fires to warn young sailors of the ocean's infinite dangers. They were the boogeymen of the deep, a way to explain the unexplainable, the ships that sailed over the horizon and simply never came back. The myth could have died there, a piece of medieval folklore. But it didn't. It grew. It evolved. In the mid-1700s, a Norwegian bishop named Erik Pontoppidan took it upon himself to create a comprehensive natural history of Norway. And in his work, he didn't dismiss the Kraken as mere legend. He documented it as a real animal. His description, based on the testimony of fishermen and sailors, would forever burn the image of the Kraken into the world's imagination. Pontoppidan wrote that the creature's back was 1.5 miles in circumference. He described how fishermen would sometimes cast their lines directly over a Kraken, thinking they had found a rich new fishing ground, only to realize in horror that the seabed was moving beneath them. He claimed its true power lay in its tentacles, furnished with large suction cups which could hold and pull down the largest man of war. Pontoppidan's account transformed the Kraken from a vague sea phantom into a tangible biological entity. He added details that made it feel terrifyingly real. He spoke of the water around it turning thick and cloudy, an ink-like substance it would expel to confuse its prey or its enemies. He even gave it a name that would stick: Kraken, the ultimate leviathan of the sea. His writings were translated and spread across Europe. Suddenly, the Kraken wasn't just a Norse nightmare. It was a subject of scientific debate. Was it a giant crab, a colossal starfish, or something else entirely, a creature unknown to science? The world was entering the Age of Enlightenment, a time of reason and discovery, yet here was a monster that defied all classification. It was a contradiction, a myth that refused to die, a shadow that stretched from the Viking Age all the way to the dawn of modern science. And as sailors pushed further into uncharted waters, the sightings didn't stop. They became more frequent, more detailed, and more terrifying. The legend was about to collide with reality, and the evidence that would finally surface would be more shocking than any sailor's tale. The world was about to get its first glimpse of the real monster. The first attempt to drag the Kraken from the depths of folklore into the light of science came not from a mariner, but from a man of God. Eric Pontoppidan, the Bishop of Bergen in Norway, was a respected naturalist in the mid-18th century. In his monumental work, The Natural History of Norway, he dedicated a chapter to the sea monsters reported by his countrymen, and he treated the Kraken not as a myth, but as a real, living animal. He was applying the principles of the Enlightenment to a creature of the Dark Ages. He gathered testimonies, he cross-referenced accounts, and he presented his findings with the sober seriousness of a biologist discovering a new species. According to Pontoppidan, the Kraken was no mere oversized squid. It was an animal of unimaginable scale. He wrote that when it was at the surface, it appeared less like an animal and more like a floating island, 1.5 miles in circumference. Sailors, he reported, would sometimes mistake its broad, flat back for a landmass, even attempting to drop anchor on it, only to have their island suddenly descend beneath them into the abyss. The signs of its approach were subtle at first. A strange and sudden shallowing of the water in a place known to be hundreds of feet deep. An unusual abundance of fish, like cod and ling, boiling to the surface. Experienced fishermen knew these were not good omens. They were the Kraken's heralds. The beast was stirring below, its immense bulk displacing the water and driving marine life upward. But Pontoppidan's descriptions contained a fascinating paradox. The primary danger of the Kraken wasn't a direct, malicious attack. It wasn't about tentacles crushing a hull, at least not in most accounts he collected. The true peril lay in its departure. After rising to the surface to feed or rest, the creature would begin its descent. And when an object the size of a small town suddenly sinks into the ocean, it doesn't go quietly. It creates a vortex, a monstrous swirling whirlpool powerful enough to pull down the largest man-of-war ship, leaving nothing but splintered wood and bubbles on the surface. To be caught in the Kraken's wake was to be condemned to the deep. Yet, in a strange twist of maritime pragmatism, Pontoppidan noted that Norwegian fishermen held a kind of reverence for the beast. Once the monster had submerged and the deadly maelstrom had subsided, they would rush to the spot. Why? Because the Kraken was a messy eater. Its presence churned up a feast from the ocean floor. And the waters where it had been were left teeming with an incredible bounty of fish. For a few dangerous hours, a man could catch more than he would in days of normal fishing. It was the ultimate high-risk, high-reward gamble. They were literally fishing in the monster's shadow, profiting from the very thing that could destroy them. Pontoppidan's work was so convincing, so thoroughly documented for its time, that it caught the attention of the most important naturalist in history, Carl Linnaeus, the father of modern taxonomy. In the very first edition of his groundbreaking Systema Naturae, the book that organized all known life on Earth, Linnaeus included the Kraken. He gave it a scientific name, Microcosmus marinus. For a brief, shining moment, the Kraken was officially recognized by the highest scientific authority in the world. It existed, on paper at least, alongside the lion, the eagle, and the whale. But the entry was quietly removed in later editions. The reason was simple, and it would become the central problem of the Kraken for the next century. There was no specimen. Science demanded proof. It needed a body, a tentacle, a beak, something tangible that could be measured, weighed, and dissected. Eyewitness accounts, no matter how numerous or detailed, were ultimately just stories. Without physical evidence, the Kraken slipped back out of the pages of science and into the realm of speculation. The scientific community had opened the door a crack, peered into the darkness, and then firmly shut it again. But while the academics in their studies debated, sailors on the high seas continued to have their own terrifying encounters. The story shifted from the cold waters of Norway to the warmer currents of the Atlantic, and they grew more violent. This is where another key figure enters our story, a French naturalist named Pierre Denis de Montfort. Where Pontoppidan was a careful cataloger, Denis Montfort was a passionate believer, a man who became obsessed with collecting every tale he could find of giant cephalopods. He wasn't just documenting a natural phenomenon, he was hunting a monster. In his 1802 book on the history of mollusks, he recounted a story that would forever change the public image of the Kraken. He told of a French vessel sailing off the coast of Angola that was allegedly attacked by a colossal poulp, or giant octopus. This was not the passive, island-sized creature of Pontoppidan's account. This was an aggressive predator. Denis Montfort's description, accompanied by a now infamous and terrifying illustration, depicted monstrous, slimy arms, thick as a man's torso, erupting from the sea. They wrapped around the ship's masts and rigging, trying to drag the vessel and its crew to a watery grave. The sailors, armed with axes and harpoons, fought back in a desperate battle for their lives, hacking at the rubbery limbs until the wounded beast finally released its grip and slid back into the depths. This was the Kraken reborn, no longer a passive hazard, but an active, malevolent horror. Denis Montfort's work was a sensation, but it was also his downfall. His dramatic retelling and even more dramatic illustrations were ridiculed by the scientific establishment. They accused him of gullibility, of elevating sailors' superstitions to scientific fact. He staked his entire career on the existence of these giant creatures, even famously proclaiming that if his colossal poulp was not accepted, he would cause a man of war to be attacked and wrecked by one of them. His reputation was destroyed. He died in poverty and obscurity in Paris, a man ostracized for believing in monsters. So by the early 19th century, the legend was at a crossroads. Pontoppidan had given it a name and a natural history. Linnaeus had given it fleeting scientific legitimacy, and Denis Montfort had given it its most terrifying face. But it was all still hearsay. It was academic theory and frantic testimony. The world had the story, the description, and the fear. But it still lacked the one thing that could silence the skeptics and vindicate the believers. It lacked a body. The debate between myth and reality had reached its peak, and the ocean, as if on cue, was about to provide an answer. A grotesque, undeniable, and very, very real answer was about to wash up on the shores of Denmark, and the world would never see the deep sea in the same way again. The proof was coming. The year is 1853. The place, the windswept coast of Denmark. A local fisherman, having hauled in his nets, finds something he doesn't recognize. It's not a fish, not a shell, not a piece of driftwood. It's hard, black, and shaped like the beak of a gigantic parrot. It's larger than his fist, wickedly sharp, and clearly belonged to something of immense size and power. Unsure of what to do with this bizarre artifact, he does what any sensible person would do when faced with a monster's remains. He takes it to a scientist. That scientist was Japetus Steenstrup, and this moment, this simple exchange between a fisherman and a zoologist, would become a turning point in history. Steenstrup wasn't just any academic. He was a brilliant, respected professor at the University of Copenhagen, a man who had dedicated his life to the systematic, rational study of the natural world. He was a debunker of myths, a champion of evidence, and now, sitting on his desk, was a piece of a myth. He examined the beak. It was made of chitin, the same tough material that forms the exoskeletons of insects. He recognized its structure immediately. It was, without a doubt, the beak of a cephalopod, a squid, but the sheer scale was impossible. Based on the size of this single body part, the creature it came from would have to be colossal, dwarfing any known squid species by a factor of 10, maybe more. It was the size of a creature from a storybook, a creature from a nightmare. Steenstrup was a man of science, but he was also a Dane. He grew up with the stories. He knew the legends of the Kraken, the terror of the northern seas. He had heard the sailors' tales, dismissed them as drunken fantasy, the product of fear and an overactive imagination. But now he was holding the proof. This wasn't a story. This was a specimen. The Kraken, it seemed, had a real-world counterpart. With trembling intellectual excitement, Steenstrup did what scientists do when they discover something new. He gave it a name. He documented it, described it, and in 1857, formally published his findings. He called the creature Architeuthis dux. The name is Latin and it is perfect. Architeuthis meaning chief squid, or ruling squid, and dux meaning leader or duke, the duke of the ruling squids. With 2 words, Steenstrup dragged the Kraken out of the murky depths of folklore and into the bright, unforgiving light of zoology. He had given the monster a name, a classification. He had made it real. And the scientific community laughed at him. They ridiculed him. A squid the size of a small whale? Based on nothing more than a single beak found by some anonymous fisherman? It was preposterous. Sounded like a hoax. Colleagues accused him of being swept up in local folklore, of abandoning scientific rigor for a cheap, sensational story. For years, Steenstrup's Architeuthis dux was little more than a footnote, a scientific curiosity treated with deep skepticism. His reputation was on the line, staked on a single monstrous beak. He needed more proof. And once again, the ocean was about to provide it. 4 years later, in 1861, hundreds of miles away near the Canary Islands, the French gunboat Alecton was on a routine patrol. The lookout screamed. There, on the surface, was a monster. A sprawling mass of reddish flesh, a tangle of writhing arms, and 2 enormous, intelligent eyes staring right back at them. It was a giant squid, lying on the surface, seemingly exhausted or wounded. The ship's captain, Lieutenant Frederick Bouillet, was not a man to shy away from a challenge. This was the monster of legend right in front of him. He ordered his men to attack. They opened fire with rifles, but the bullets just sank into the creature's soft, rubbery body with little effect. They fired the ship's cannons. The cannonballs ripped through the creature's gelatinous flesh, but it was like shooting at water. It didn't seem to have bones or a structure they could break. Frustrated, they tried to bring it aboard. They threw harpoons, which stuck into the creature's body. They tried to loop ropes around its massive tail fin. The crew heaved and pulled, trying to haul the immense beast onto the deck. But the creature's weight was astronomical. The ropes strained, the ship listed to one side. And then, with a sickening tearing sound, the creature's body ripped apart. The massive head and tentacles, the bulk of the animal, slid free from the ropes and sank, disappearing back into the blackness from which it came. All the crew of the Alecton had to show for their epic battle was a fragment of the tail fin and some flesh, weighing about 40 pounds in total. But they also had something more valuable: a detailed official report from a naval officer, corroborated by his entire crew. This wasn't a fisherman's tale. This was a military encounter. The report, complete with detailed sketches, was sent back to France and caused a sensation. It was discussed at the French Academy of Sciences. The world-famous author Jules Verne read about the Alecton's encounter, and it directly inspired one of the most terrifying scenes in literary history: Captain Nemo's battle with the giant squid in 20,000 leagues under the sea. The tide was turning. First Steenstrup's beak. Now the Alecton's documented battle. The evidence was slowly, painstakingly accumulating. More reports trickled in from all over the North Atlantic. A piece of a tentacle found in Ireland. Another mangled body in the Shetland Islands. Each discovery was another nail in the coffin of skepticism. Scientists who had once laughed at Japita Steenstrup were now forced to reconsider. Maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe the monster was real. The world was beginning to accept a terrifying new reality. The dark, unexplored parts of our own planet were home to a creature of almost unbelievable size and power. A true sea monster. The Kraken of legend had a name, Architeuthis dux, and it was leaving a trail of bodies and wreckage in its wake. But all of this evidence was still fragmented. A beak, a piece of a tail, eyewitness accounts. It was compelling, but it wasn't the whole picture. The world had still never seen a complete, intact specimen. No one truly knew what the entire animal looked like in its full, terrifying glory. The mystery was still largely unsolved. To find that final, undeniable proof, the world would have to turn its eyes away from Europe, across the Atlantic, to a small, rugged island off the coast of Canada. A place of thick fog, icy waters, and hardened fishermen who had their own stories to tell. This place, Newfoundland, was about to become ground zero for the giant squid. The fishermen there were about to get up close and personal with the Kraken. And what they would drag from the depths would not be a fragment or a piece. It would be the whole thing. And for the first time in history, someone would be there with a camera. The first photograph of our planet's real-life monster was about to be taken. The year is 2004. And the man with the camera is a Japanese zoologist named Tsunami Kabadara. For years, Kabadara had been obsessed, haunted by the ghost of the giant squid. He, like so many before him, had only ever seen the dead and the dying. He'd studied the beaks found in the stomachs of sperm whales, examined the lifeless, rubbery carcasses that washed ashore, and analyzed the fragments caught in fishing nets. But to a true zoologist, this was like studying humanity by only looking at tombstones. It told you something, but it told you nothing of life, of behavior, of the spirit of the animal. He knew the stories. He knew the legends. But he was a man of science and he needed proof. He needed to see it, not in a freezer or pickled in a jar, but alive and in its kingdom. His hunting ground was the deep, dark waters off Japan's Ogasawara Islands, a known hotspot for sperm whales. And where there are sperm whales, there is often their favorite meal. Kabadara's logic was simple, yet profound. For decades, humanity had been trying to find the Kraken by going to it. We built massive, noisy, brightly lit submersibles. We descended into the abyss like a clumsy, loud intruder at a silent funeral, announcing our presence with whirring motors and blazing lights. And we found nothing. Of course we found nothing. The giant squid has the largest eye of any animal on Earth, an eye the size of a dinner plate, exquisitely designed to capture the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence in the crushing blackness. It was an eye built to detect predators from a mile away. Our submersibles weren't tools of discovery. They were giant scarecrows, warning beacons that sent any nearby squid jetting into the deeper darkness. Kabadara decided to flip the script. Instead of hunting the monster, he would lure it. He would become the patient fisherman, not with a hook, but with a camera. His plan was elegant in its simplicity. He and his team would assemble a rig. A long-weighted line dropped vertically into the depths. Attached to this line would be bait, mashed shrimp and a single Japanese common squid, and a specially designed camera, programmed to take a picture every 30 seconds. It was a silent, unobtrusive trap. No engines, no lights, just a tempting meal and a single unblinking electronic eye, waiting in the cold, silent void nearly 3,000 feet below the surface. For 2 years they tried. They would sail out, deploy the line, and wait. Hours would turn into days. They would haul the line back up, the bait gone, and eagerly check the camera. And time after time they were met with disappointment. Hundreds of pictures of nothing, just empty black water. Sometimes a smaller, more common deep-sea fish would drift by, a ghostly shape in the flash. But of their great prize there was no sign. The pressure was immense. The funding was limited. Every failed expedition was another nail in the coffin of his theory. Doubts began to creep in. Was this a fool's errand? Was the animal simply too intelligent, too elusive to fall for such a simple trick? Then came September 30th, 2004. The team was on their research vessel, the Kyomaru, floating above the abyss. They dropped the line, the camera and bait disappearing beneath the waves, unspooling into the crushing pressure below. And they waited. The sun beat down. The waves lapped against the hull. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. At 9:15 in the morning, something happened. Far below, in a world without light, the bait was no longer alone. A colossal shadow emerged from the gloom. It wasn't a fish. It wasn't a shark. It was a column of muscle and intelligence, moving with a purpose that was terrifying to behold. A giant squid, an Architeuthis, had arrived. It didn't approach cautiously. It attacked. A massive 26-foot-long creature materialized out of the black and launched itself at the bait line with explosive force. Two of its enormous feeding tentacles, armed with powerful suckers, wrapped around the bait rig. The camera flashed. Click. Captured the initial violent strike. The squid was a vision of alien power, a tangle of reddish-pink flesh and muscle. It began to pull, to wrench the bait from the line. Click. Another photo. The squid twisted its body, its huge, intelligent eye visible for a fraction of a second, reflecting the camera's flash in the otherwise total darkness. It was a moment of pure primal conflict. Predator versus prey. Only the prey was a clever deception, a lure for a ghost. For the next 4 hours the squid fought. It was a titanic struggle in the silent deep. The creature was powerful, wrapping its entire body around the bait, trying to tear it free. The camera, a silent, impartial witness, kept flashing, capturing over 500 images of this epic battle. The squid was so strong, so determined, that it became entangled in the line. In its violent thrashing, one of its own tentacles, an 18-foot-long limb, was severed. Finally, exhausted and injured, the creature retreated back into the abyss, leaving behind a piece of itself and a camera full of secrets. On the surface, Kabadara and his team knew nothing of the drama that had unfolded below. They only knew that the waiting was over. They began the slow, arduous process of hauling the line up from the depths. As the rig finally broke the surface, they saw it immediately. Draped over the bait apparatus was a long, thick, fleshy tentacle. It was pale and covered in suckers the size of teacups. It was unmistakably the arm of a giant squid. A jolt of electricity shot through the crew. They had physical proof. But the real prize was locked inside the camera's memory. They rushed the camera to the lab, their hearts pounding. They downloaded the images. And there it was. Frame after frame of the impossible. The legend made real. A living, breathing giant squid in its natural habitat. It wasn't a drawing in an old book. It wasn't a dead thing on a slab. It was alive, dynamic, and powerful. The images were breathtaking. They showed the creature's aggression, its hunting technique. They saw how it used its two long feeding tentacles to ensnare its prey before pulling it towards its powerful beak. They saw the shimmering, iridescent skin, the sheer size and muscularity. For the first time, humanity was looking at its monster not as a myth, but as an animal. The news exploded across the globe. It was the cover of science journals, the lead story on news channels. Tsunami Kabadara became a hero. He had done what no one else could. He had photographed the Kraken. The pictures were more than just a scientific breakthrough. They were a vindication for every sailor's tall tale, for every legend whispered in seaside taverns. The monster was real. But even in this moment of ultimate triumph, a new hunger was born. The still photos were incredible, a window into another world. But they were just that, still. A series of frozen moments. They were like a comic book of the event, but everyone now wanted to see the movie. To truly understand this animal, to see how it moved, how it hunted, how it lived in the crushing dark, they needed more. They needed to see it in motion. The quest for the photograph was over. The hunt for the first ever video had just begun. And this new hunt would require a completely different kind of hunter. A different mindset. A still photograph, as monumental as it was, captured a single frozen instant. It proved the giant squid existed, but it told you nothing of its personality, its intelligence, its soul. Video was life. It was movement, behavior, intent. To capture the giant squid on video in its natural habitat would be like capturing lightning in a bottle. It was the holy grail of marine biology. The problem was, for decades, everyone had been hunting for it in the wrong way. The standard approach was brute force. You take a multi-million-dollar submersible, a machine bristling with powerful lights, driven by noisy hydraulic thrusters, and you plunge it into the abyss. Then you drive around hoping to stumble upon one of the most elusive animals on the planet. It was the deep-sea equivalent of trying to sneak up on a deer by driving a monster truck through the forest with the headlights on high and the stereo blasting. It was loud, it was clumsy, and it was utterly, completely ineffective. The giant squid, an animal that had evolved over millions of years in absolute silence and darkness, could see and hear these machines coming from miles away. And it would simply leave. It would melt back into the crushing blackness from which it came, long before human eyes could ever register its presence. Year after year, expedition after expedition, the result was the same. Millions of dollars spent, thousands of hours logged in the deep, and nothing, not a glimpse. It was a source of immense frustration for the scientists who dedicated their lives to this quest. They knew the squid was down there. The evidence was irrefutable, the sucker marks on whales, the carcasses that washed ashore. But in its own world, it remained a ghost. A new strategy was needed. One based not on power but on stealth, not on blinding light, but on a subtle invitation. This is where Dr. Edith Witter enters the story, a brilliant marine biologist and a pioneer in the study of bioluminescence, the light made by living creatures. Witter had a revolutionary idea, one that flipped the entire paradigm of the search on its head. She argued that the bright, constant lights of the submersibles weren't attracting the squid, they were scaring it away. In a world where light means life, a sudden blinding floodlight doesn't signal a meal. It signals danger. It's the visual equivalent of a scream. Witter's insight was profound. The giant squid is a visual predator. Its eyes, the largest in the animal kingdom, weren't evolved to withstand the glare of a Hollywood film set. They were evolved to detect the faintest glimmers of light in the dark, the tiny flashes of a shrimp, the ghostly glow of a fish, the desperate, luminous signals of prey. So she reasoned, if you want to attract a giant squid, you don't use a searchlight. You use bait that speaks its language, the language of light. Her plan was to build a lure that didn't use a dead fish or squid on a hook. Instead, her lure would mimic the distress signal of another deep-sea creature. She focused on the Atala jellyfish. When this jellyfish is attacked, it doesn't just give up. It screams for help with a mesmerizing rotating pinwheel of blue light. It's a biological burglar alarm. The light doesn't scare the initial attacker. Its purpose is to attract something bigger and meaner that will, in turn, attack the attacker, giving the jellyfish a chance to escape in the confusion. Witter called this the distress and attract display. She theorized that to a massive predator like the giant squid, this pinwheel of light would be an irresistible dinner bell. It was a signal that a struggle was happening, that a meal was potentially available. So she built it. Working with engineers, she created a device she called the Jelly. It was a circle of powerful LED lights programmed to perfectly replicate the hypnotic, swirling blue light of the Atala jellyfish's alarm. This optical lure would be attached to a remote, battery-powered camera platform designed to be completely silent. No noisy thrusters, no crew, no blinding lights. Just a single silent camera, a faint red light invisible to most deep-sea creatures, and the alluring silent scream of the jelly. The platform, nicknamed the Medusa, would be dropped into the depths to wait, patiently and silently, for the monster to come to it. In the summer of 2012, an international team of scientists, including Witter, Japanese squid expert Dr. Tsunami Kubotara, and New Zealand's Dr. Steve O'Shea, assembled in Japan. Their target was the deep canyons off the Ogasawara Islands, a known hotspot for giant squid. This was it, the culmination of decades of research and millions of dollars of investment. The pressure was immense. They would be using a 3-person submersible, the Triton, to dive alongside the Medusa camera system. The plan was for the sub to hang back, lights off, acting as a silent observation post, while the Medusa and its jelly did the work. The first dives were agonizing. They would descend for hours into the cold, crushing blackness, a depth of over 2,000 feet. Down in the cockpit of the Triton, it was a world of hushed whispers and the quiet hum of life support. They would deploy the Medusa, activate the jelly, and then they would wait, staring out of the thick acrylic viewport into a void so complete it felt like the end of the universe. Hours would crawl by. They'd see strange, beautiful forms of deep-sea life drift past, bioluminescent creatures painting the dark with their own private light shows. But not the one they came for. Dive after dive, they returned to the surface with nothing. The frustration began to mount. The clock was ticking on their expedition. Was this just another failed attempt? Was Witter's theory wrong? Then, on their 6th dive, everything changed. They were at a depth of 2,067 feet. The Medusa was deployed, its jelly pulsing its silent, blue invitation into the abyss. Inside the submersible, the team watched the live feed from the Medusa's camera. For hours, it was the same old story. Nothing but the slow drift of marine snow. And then it happened. Out of the absolute black, something emerged. At first, it was just a shape, a flicker of movement at the very edge of the camera's view. It wasn't fast. It was slow, deliberate, cautious. A long, pale arm snaked into the frame, its surface dotted with powerful suckers. Then another. The creature was investigating the jelly. It was a moment of heart-stopping tension. The scientists in the sub held their breath, their faces illuminated only by the glow of the monitor. This was it. The creature finally revealed itself, moving out of the darkness and into the faint red light of the camera. It was breathtaking. A giant squid, shimmering in hues of silver and gold. It was not the rampaging beast of myth, but a careful, intelligent, and curious animal. Its enormous eye, the size of a dinner plate, swiveled to look directly at the camera, seeming to process, to analyze. It was a profound, humbling moment of connection with an animal that had, until now, lived only in the realm of legend. The squid reached out, not with aggression, but with a delicate curiosity, its 2 long feeding tentacles unfurling to gently touch the jelly lure. It seemed to be tasting it, feeling it, trying to understand what this strange, pulsing light was. For a full 23 minutes, the creature stayed, circling the camera, investigating the lure, giving the scientists and the world the first ever sustained look at this mythical animal in its home. They saw how it used its fins for graceful propulsion, how it coordinated its 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles, how its skin could flash and change color. It was a ballet of biology in the deep. Then, as silently as it had arrived, it was gone. It simply released the lure and propelled itself backwards, melting once more into the infinite blackness, leaving behind only the incredible, world-changing footage on the Medusa's hard drive. Back in the submersible, a stunned silence was broken by gasps and quiet celebration. They had done it. They had found the ghost. They hadn't just proven it was real. They had met it face to face and recorded its every move. The hunt for the video was over, but the revelations from what they captured were just beginning to surface. This footage would rewrite the book on the giant squid, transforming it from a monster of our nightmares into a magnificent, intelligent survivor of the deep. The first time the scientists played back the full, stabilized footage, there was a stunned silence in the control room. The grainy, almost ghostly images that had flickered on their deep-sea monitor were now clear. And the creature they saw was not the raging, ship-crushing beast of legend. It was something else entirely. Something elegant. Its skin shimmered, shifting from a deep, blood red to a brilliant, metallic silver in the submersible's lights. It moved not with blind aggression, but with a cautious, deliberate curiosity. This wasn't a monster. This was an enigma. For centuries, our understanding of the giant squid was cobbled together from scraps. A tentacle found in a whale's stomach. A mangled carcass washed ashore after a storm. We were like detectives trying to solve a murder with only a single blurry photograph. From this fragmented evidence, we built a monster. We assumed it was a sluggish, inefficient creature, an evolutionary relic that simply drifted in the dark, waiting for something to blunder into its grasp. A simple, stupid brute. The 2012 footage didn't just challenge that assumption, it obliterated it. What the video showed was an active, intelligent hunter. The squid didn't just stumble upon the lure. It approached it methodically. It investigated. You could almost see the thought process as its enormous eye, the size of a dinner plate, swiveled to take in every detail. This eye, the largest in the animal kingdom, isn't just for seeing in the dark. It's for processing information, for calculating distance, for identifying threats and opportunities with stunning precision. When it finally struck, it wasn't a chaotic, thrashing attack. It was a masterpiece of biological engineering. 2 long, specialized feeding tentacles, which had been coiled and hidden, shot out with incredible speed and accuracy, the toothed sucker clubs at the end flaring open like deadly blossoms. It was a calculated, lightning-fast strike. This creature was a deep-sea fighter jet, not a blimp, and this revealed the second, deeper truth the footage exposed. The giant squid is profoundly intelligent. We often measure intelligence by human standards, but in the crushing blackness of the abyss, intelligence takes on a different form. The squid's brain is one of the most sophisticated among all invertebrates. It's shaped like a donut with its esophagus, the tube it eats through, passing directly through the center. A strange design for sure, but it's connected to a complex nervous system that allows for incredible control over its body. It can change its color, texture, and even its bioluminescence in the blink of an eye. This isn't just simple camouflage, it's a language of light and skin. Think about that. Down there where sunlight has never reached, these animals might be communicating with flashes of light, with shimmering patterns that ripple across their bodies. The 2012 footage captured hints of this. Photophores, the light-producing organs on the squid's body, pulsed softly. Was it a threat display? A sign of curiosity? Or was it trying to communicate with the strange, glowing creature, the lure, that had invaded its territory? We were eavesdropping on a conversation we couldn't possibly understand. The Kraken of legend was a creature of pure, mindless rage. The real Architeuthis, the one revealed in this footage, was a thinking, problem-solving animal living in a world of alien signals. The footage also forced scientists to reevaluate the squid's place in the deep-sea ecosystem. For a long time, the only real evidence of their lives came from their deaths, specifically from the stomachs of sperm whales. The epic battles between these 2 titans of the deep were legendary, but we only ever heard the whale's side of the story. The squid was always the victim, the prey. But the controlled power and predatory focus seen in the video suggested the squid was far from a helpless meal. It was a top predator in its own right. It hunts large fish and even other squid in the pitch-black depths. The scars seen on sperm whales weren't just from a desperate animal trying to escape. They were the marks of a powerful creature fighting back. A heavyweight champion defending its title in the darkest arena on Earth. Every frame of the video was a revelation. The way it used its fins for delicate, precise maneuvering. The way it could instantly change direction, using its siphon for jet propulsion. The sheer muscular control it had over every one of its 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles. This was an animal beautifully adapted to its extreme environment. The pressure down there is immense, enough to crush a military submarine. The cold is just above freezing, and there is no light. To not only survive but to thrive, to become a dominant predator in that hostile world, requires more than just size. It requires sophistication. It requires intelligence. The 2012 encounter cracked open a door that had been sealed for millennia. It proved that the giant squid could be found, it could be filmed, and it was more magnificent than we had ever imagined. The world was captivated. News outlets, scientific journals, and social media exploded with images of this shimmering, silver and red phantom of the deep. The monster had been given a face, and it was a face of mesmerizing, alien beauty. But for the scientists, this was just the beginning. The success of the Japanese team sparked a new kind of gold rush, a race to the bottom of the ocean. Other teams, armed with newer technology, better cameras, and a wealth of new knowledge from that first encounter, began planning their own expeditions. They knew it was possible now. The ghost could be captured on film, and the competition was fierce. Everyone wanted to be the next to find the Kraken. They wanted to capture it in even higher definition, to observe its behavior for longer, to unlock more of its secrets. And in 2019, an American team, exploring the abyssal Midnight Zone in the Gulf of Mexico, would get their chance. They were using a new kind of camera platform, a stealthy probe designed to be as unobtrusive as possible, hoping to catch the deep's inhabitants unaware. For days, they saw nothing but the usual deep-sea oddities. And then, out of the impenetrable blackness, a shape began to form on their monitor. It was big, and it was moving fast. This time, the creature wasn't cautiously investigating a lure. This time, it was coming straight for the camera. The team on the surface could only watch, their hearts pounding in their chests. On the screen, the blackness was suddenly violated by an explosion of motion. A thick, muscular arm wider than a man's thigh slammed into the camera rig. The view spun violently, a chaotic blur of silver and black. Another arm joined it, then another. They weren't just touching the camera, they were seizing it. The submersible's lights glinted off rows of toothed suckers, each one a perfect circle of biological grappling hooks, latching onto the metal frame with terrifying strength. Down in the submersible, Dr. Witter and her team were holding their breath. This was it, the culmination of years of work, of countless failed attempts. But there was no time for celebration. The creature was trying to tear their equipment apart. It was a blur of coordinated, violent power. The camera, their only eye in this alien world, was being shaken like a dog's chew toy. Through the chaos they caught glimpses. A flash of a colossal intelligent eye. The glint of a horny, parrot-like beak snapping near the lens. This wasn't a gentle giant. This was a predator. An apex hunter in its element, and it had mistaken their multi-million-dollar camera for prey. For what felt like an eternity, the assault continued. The creature was relentless, wrapping the rig in a suffocating embrace. It was testing it, probing for weakness, trying to rip the bait free. The scientists were witnessing, for the first time in history, the raw, unbridled power of an Architeuthis dux in a full-blown attack. This was the behavior that had fueled 1,000 years of legend. This was the strength that could splinter the hull of a wooden ship, that could pull a sailor from the deck into the crushing abyss. And then, as suddenly as it began, the attack ceased. The creature, perhaps realizing the camera wasn't food, recoiled. It didn't flee. It simply pulled back, its curiosity overriding its aggression. And in that moment, humanity got its first good look at the living Kraken. It hung there in the water, suspended in the submersible's lights, a living phantom of bronze and silver. It was magnificent. It was terrifying. Its skin wasn't the dull, fleshy red of the dead specimens that washed ashore. It was an iridescent, metallic sheath, shimmering with shifting colors. This was the work of chromatophores, specialized cells that allowed it to flash signals, communicate, or vanish into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Its body, the mantle, was a torpedo of muscle, housing the machinery for its powerful jet propulsion system, which had allowed it to appear out of the darkness with such shocking speed. But it was the head that drew the eye, or more specifically, the eye itself. It was the size of a dinner plate, the largest eye in the entire animal kingdom. It stared out from the deep, a massive complex organ built for one purpose: to gather the faintest photons of bioluminescent light in the crushing absolute blackness of the midnight zone. It wasn't just seeing, it was analyzing. It was an eye that spoke of intelligence, of a creature that processed its world in ways we could barely comprehend. Flowing from its head were its 8 arms, thick and restless, still dotted with those fearsome toothed suckers. And among them, it held its 2 longest tentacles, the specialized feeding appendages. These were the weapons. They were thinner, more delicate, but tipped with clubs of enlarged suckers, designed to shoot out and snare prey with incredible speed before the 8 powerful arms took over, pulling the victim towards that deadly beak. The team watched, utterly mesmerized. Every myth, every legend had a kernel of truth. The monstrous size, the powerful arms, the alien intelligence in its gaze. It was all there. They had found it. They had found the monster. But in finding the monster, they had discovered a magnificent animal. A creature perfectly and beautifully adapted to one of the most hostile environments on Earth. This encounter, which lasted only a few minutes, completely rewrote the book on the giant squid. For decades, scientists had debated whether it was a sluggish, passive ambush predator, simply drifting in the depths waiting for something to blunder into its tentacles. The footage proved otherwise. This was an active, engaged, and aggressive hunter. It used its enormous eyes to spot prey from a distance, and its powerful jet to attack with speed and precision. It was a proactive predator, a true king of the deep. The footage also gave us incredible insight into its behavior. The way it first cautiously investigated the lure, using a single tentacle to probe the unknown object, demonstrated a high level of caution and intelligence. Then, the switch to a full-on coordinated attack showed its confidence and power. It wasn't just a dumb brute. It was a thinking hunter, capable of assessing a situation and changing its tactics. And we learned about its physical presence. It moved with a grace and fluidity that defied its immense size. It wasn't just a floating sack of flesh. It was a streamlined, muscular predator. The silvery gold coloration was a complete surprise, suggesting it used camouflage and communication in ways we'd never imagined. The legends had always depicted a dark, nightmarish beast. The reality was a shimmering, almost ethereal being, a ghost in the machine of the deep ocean. But the most profound discovery was simply its existence in this place. For the first time, we knew where to look. We knew what it responded to. The team had cracked the code. They proved that with the right technology and the right understanding of the deep-sea environment, using quiet submersibles, red light, and lures that mimic natural bioluminescence, we could finally enter their world without scaring them away. After its investigation, the squid, seemingly satisfied that the strange glowing machine was not food, simply let go. With a final powerful pulse of its mantle, it propelled itself backwards, melting back into the impenetrable blackness from which it came. It vanished as if it were never there, leaving behind only a swirling cloud of disturbed sediment and a team of scientists in stunned, rapturous silence. They had done it. They had filmed the unfilmable. They had stared into the eye of the abyss, and the abyss had stared back with a dinner plate-sized eye of its own. The footage they captured would be seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world, finally transforming the Kraken from a terrifying myth into a real, breathing animal. But this monumental achievement was not an ending. It was a beginning. It answered the question of if we could find them, but it opened up a flood of new, even more tantalizing questions. The squid they filmed was estimated to be about 10 feet long, a juvenile. The truly massive specimens, the 40, 50, even 60-foot behemoths that had been found washed ashore. Where were they? Did they live even deeper? Were they more elusive? And what about their sworn enemy? The creature that leaves giant circular scars on the bodies of sperm whales, the only predator known to actively hunt the giant squid. For centuries, sailors told stories of titanic battles in the deep, of wrestling tentacles and snapping jaws. Now that scientists had finally found the Kraken's lair, could they also find evidence of its legendary and only rival? The answer is not another squid. nor some mythical sea serpent. The Kraken's only true rival, the only creature on this planet capable of consistently hunting and killing a fully grown giant squid, is a living leviathan, the largest toothed predator to have ever existed, the sperm whale. This wasn't a fight between equals. This was a war between gods. On one side, a creature of alien intelligence and nightmarish strength, an 8-armed vortex of fury. On the other, a 60-foot, 50-ton battering ram of muscle and bone, a biological submarine armed with the most powerful sonar in the animal kingdom. For centuries, this was the stuff of legend. But as science began to peel back the layers of the deep ocean, the evidence for this titanic struggle became undeniable, written on the very bodies of the combatants. The first clues came not from marine biologists, but from the grimy, blood-soaked decks of 19th-century whaling ships. As whalers hauled these colossal mammals from the sea, they noticed something strange. The whales, particularly the large, battle-hardened males, were covered in scars. But these weren't the rake marks of killer whales or the gashes from boat propellers. These were perfect circles, sometimes as large as a dinner plate, etched deep into the whale's skin, concentrated around their heads and massive jaws. They were sucker marks, and given their size, they could have only come from one animal. The whalers were looking at the battle scars from a war waged a mile beneath their feet. They were seeing for the first time the ghost of the Kraken. Imagine the scene. A bull sperm whale the size of a school bus hangs vertically in the crushing blackness of the midnight zone. It isn't breathing. Its lungs collapsed long ago under the immense pressure. It is running on stored oxygen, a master of the abyss. But it isn't blind. It is painting the darkness with sound. Click, click, click. Each click is an explosion of acoustic energy, a sonic flashlight that travels for miles, bouncing off everything in its path. The whale's enormous head, which makes up a third of its body length, isn't just a battering ram. It's a sophisticated sonar array. The vast chamber filled with spermaceti oil acts as a powerful lens, focusing these clicks into a narrow, targeted beam. The echoes that return paint a three-dimensional picture in the whale's mind, a perfect image of the canyons and creatures hidden in the eternal night. And then it hears an echo that makes its ancient blood run cold. An echo that promises a meal of immense proportions, but also a fight for its life. It detects the colossal, soft-bodied signature of a giant squid. The squid, for its part, is not helpless. It possesses the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, the size of basketballs, specifically designed to capture the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence in the deep. It might see the faint glow of plankton disturbed by the whale's approach, or perhaps it feels the pressure wave of the 50-ton predator moving through the water. It prepares for ambush. Its tentacles, each lined with hundreds of serrated, saw-toothed suckers, coil like immense springs, ready to erupt. The whale dives. It is a controlled fall, a torpedo descending on its target. The battle is joined not with a roar, but with a silent, violent explosion of flesh and fury. The squid strikes first, its two longest feeding tentacles shooting out like harpoons, grabbing onto the whale's head. The other 8 arms follow, a living net of muscle and serrated suckers, enveloping the whale's jaw, trying to smother it, to blind it, to hold the great mouth shut. The sucker rings, armed with chitinous teeth, dig into the whale's tough skin, tearing and gouging, creating those telltale circular scars that would one day puzzle whalers on the surface. But the whale is a creature of pure power. It drives forward, its immense momentum unstoppable. It uses its head as a bludgeon, trying to stun the squid against a canyon wall. It thrashes, rolls, and dives, attempting to dislodge the clinging monster. The primary goal is to get its jaw, lined with 50 conical teeth, each the size of a railroad spike, into position. The squid's only real defense against that maw is its sheer mass and its powerful arms. It's a desperate wrestling match in the dark. The squid tries to immobilize and suffocate. The whale tries to bite and crush. For decades, this scene was pure, educated speculation. The scars were circumstantial evidence. The real proof, the smoking gun, was found inside the whale itself. When scientists began to study the stomach contents of sperm whales, they found something incredible. Squid beaks. Hundreds of them. The beak of a squid, much like that of a parrot or an eagle, is made of tough, indigestible chitin. And the beaks found in the bellies of sperm whales were enormous. By measuring them, scientists could finally calculate the true size of the whale's prey. They confirmed that sperm whales weren't just occasionally bumping into giant squid. They were actively and successfully hunting them. This was their primary food source in the deep. The Kraken, the terror of the seas, was, for the sperm whale, simply Tuesday's dinner. This discovery painted a new, more brutal picture. The scars on the whale weren't from a battle of equals. They were the desperate, last-ditch efforts of prey fighting its predator. The squid doesn't initiate this fight. It ends it. Every battle is a fight to the death, and for the squid it is almost always its own. And yet the question remained. Could we ever witness this? Could humanity ever lay eyes on this primordial conflict? For years the answer was no. The battleground was too deep, too dark, too hostile. But technology marches on. With the advent of deep-sea remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, equipped with high-definition, low-light cameras, a window into this world was finally cracked open. And then it happened. In rare, fleeting moments captured by research teams exploring the deep ocean, the legend became reality. Footage emerged of a sperm whale in the midnight zone, entangled in its jaws the pale, ghostly arms of a massive squid. It wasn't the clean, cinematic battle of Hollywood. It was chaotic, violent, and brief. A glimpse of a white tentacle, a flash of a massive jaw closing, and then the whale descending back into the blackness with its prize. It was final, definitive proof. The war was real. Science had finally confirmed the legend. The clash of titans, once relegated to sea shanties and fantasy, was a documented biological fact. The Kraken had a predator, a master of the abyss that had been hunting it for millions of years. It seemed the ultimate mystery of the deep had been solved. The food chain had been established. The great monster had been put in its place. But the ocean is never that simple. As scientists examined the scars on sperm whales more closely, a new unsettling question began to surface. The circular scars from the giant squid suckers were clear, but there were other marks. Deeper gouges, long parallel slashes that looked less like they were made by a suction cup and more like they were carved by claws. Some of the beaks found in whale stomachs were also different, thicker, stronger, and shaped for shearing rather than just gripping. The evidence was pointing to a chilling possibility. The giant squid, the creature we had crowned the Kraken, might not be the only titan down there. It might not even be the most dangerous. What if there was another, a different kind of monster, a heavier, more heavily armed cephalopod lurking in the even deeper, colder waters of the Southern Ocean? A creature that didn't just hold on with suckers, but one that ripped and tore with swiveling hooks. This creature is no mere legend. It is real. And for decades it was a ghost, a phantom known only by the brutal scars it left behind. Whalers operating in the freezing, treacherous waters of the Antarctic, the Southern Ocean, had seen the evidence for years. They would haul in sperm whales, the undisputed kings of the deep, and find their massive heads and flanks covered in scars. But these weren't just the familiar, circular sucker marks left by giant squid. Among them were other wounds, long parallel gashes, deep, gouging claw marks, as if the whale had wrestled with a pack of giant tigers in the abyss. What in the world could leave a mark like that? The other clue came from the bellies of these whales. Scientists would dissect the stomach contents and find the hard, indigestible beaks of the squid the whales had eaten. And sometimes they'd find a beak that was shockingly different. It was thicker, heavier, and more robust than any giant squid beak they had ever seen. It belonged to something else. Something bigger. Something stronger. For the longest time, that's all we had. Scars and beaks. The ghostly fingerprints of a monster we had never seen. In 1925, a biologist named Guy Robson examined two strange, rubbery arms pulled from the stomach of a sperm whale. On these arms were not just suckers, but a terrifying arsenal of sharp, swiveling, three-pointed hooks embedded into the tissue. He knew he was looking at something entirely new, a creature from a different branch of the squid family tree. He gave the phantom a name, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni. It means literally, middle hook squid. But for the next 78 years, that's all it was. A name, a couple of dismembered arms, a collection of beaks, a ghost story told by scientists, a theoretical monster. Then, in 2003, everything changed. In the frigid depths of the Ross Sea off the coast of Antarctica, a fishing vessel caught something in its nets. It was a juvenile, but it was complete. It was our first look at the animal in the flesh. And it was even more bizarre and formidable than the fragments had suggested. But the true revelation, the moment the myth became a heavyweight reality, came 4 years later, in 2007. Another fishing vessel, A New Zealand boat called the Sanaspiring was long-lining for Patagonian toothfish in the same Antarctic waters. As they hauled in their line from over a mile deep, they realized something was very, very wrong. The line was incredibly heavy, and a toothfish they had hooked was being actively eaten by something enormous as it was being pulled to the surface. The crew watched, stunned, as a monster of unbelievable proportions emerged from the black water, its tentacles still wrapped around the fish. It was a massive maroon-red creature, and it was dying. They knew instantly that they had found something the world had never truly seen before. Realizing the immense scientific importance of their catch, the crew painstakingly, carefully, managed to maneuver the behemoth into a cargo net and haul it aboard. It was a colossal female, the largest squid ever captured intact. She weighed an estimated 1,100 pounds and measured about 33 feet long. She was frozen in the ship's hold, and when the boat returned to port, the news exploded across the globe. The ghost had been caught. The world finally had its monster. This was the colossal squid. And when scientists in New Zealand began to thaw and examine this incredible specimen, they confirmed what the scars and hooks had long suggested. This was a fundamentally different beast from the giant squid. The giant squid, Architeuthis, is long and lean, a sleek, fast-moving predator. It's built like a greyhound of the deep. The colossal squid, Mesonicoteuthis, is built like a bulldog. It's shorter but far, far heavier. It has a larger, more robust body or mantle. It is pure muscle and power. It is, pound for pound, the heavyweight champion of the invertebrate world. Its eyes were the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes of any known animal on Earth, designed to gather the faintest glimmers of bioluminescent light in the permanent midnight of the abyss. Its beak was the largest and most powerful ever recorded, but its true terror, its defining feature, lay in its arms and tentacles. Unlike the giant squid, whose arms are lined with simple suckers, the colossal squid's limbs are a medieval torture device. The 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles are covered in suckers, yes, but many of those suckers are armed. At the end of the 2 feeding tentacles, the clubs are a nightmare vision. They are equipped with 2 rows of razor-sharp, swiveling hooks. These hooks can rotate 360 degrees, meaning that once they sink into flesh, any attempt to pull away only causes them to dig in deeper. And they are not small. Some are over an inch long, as sharp as a cat's claw and shaped like a grappling hook. This changes the entire dynamic of the hunt. A giant squid grabs its prey and holds on with suction. It's a powerful grip, but it's still just a grip. The colossal squid doesn't just hold on. It latches on, it pierces, it rips, it shreds. Imagine being a sperm whale, diving a mile down into the crushing cold and blackness, hunting for food. Suddenly, 2 tentacles lash out. They don't just stick to you, they punch into you. Dozens of razor-sharp hooks sink deep into your hide. You try to roll and thrash to dislodge the attacker, but the swiveling hooks just dig in deeper, tearing long furrows in your skin and blubber. Then the 8 arms wrap around you, each one also armed with suckers and hooks, pulling you inexorably towards that massive, bone-crushing beak at the center of the writhing mass. This is not a predator built for chasing down fish. This is a predator built to fight whales. It's an ambush hunter, a grappler, a brawler lurking in the dark, waiting for something huge to swim by. This is the creature that leaves those deep, claw-like scars on the heads of sperm whales. The battles that must take place between these 2 titans in the Antarctic abyss are almost unimaginable. A clash of leviathans in a world of absolute darkness and crushing pressure. A fight to the death that no human has ever witnessed. We had found it. The science had finally caught up with the legend. For centuries, sailors told tales of a tentacled monster that could wrestle a ship. We dismissed it as fantasy. Then we found the giant squid, a real-life sea monster, but perhaps not quite the shipwrecker of lore. But what if the old legends, the stories passed down by whalers, were conflating 2 different beasts? What if the long serpentine creature was the giant squid, but the true brawler, the thick-bodied, unstoppable force of destruction, was the colossal? We had finally found a real-world creature that truly fit the terrifying reputation of the Kraken. A monster armed not just with suckers, but with rows of flesh-tearing hooks. A creature so powerful it does battle with the largest predator on the planet. We have the body, we have the weapons, we have the proof. But in finding this monster, we stumbled upon an even greater mystery. Because while we have now seen the colossal squid, dead on a dissection table, we know almost nothing about its life. We have a handful of fleeting video clips of juveniles, but we have never not once seen a full-grown adult in its natural habitat. We've never seen it hunt. We don't know how it reproduces, how it moves, or how it uses those giant eyes. We have found the most heavily armed, most powerful invertebrate on planet Earth, a true monster of the deep, and it is still almost entirely a ghost. And in that ghostly nature we find the final, beautiful, and terrifying truth of the Kraken. We started this journey looking for a monster. We sifted through the tales of terrified sailors, the sober accounts of naturalists, and the wild fantasies of poets. We dove into the history, the biology, and the mythology, all in search of one singular beast. But the Kraken was never just one creature. It couldn't be. The legend is too vast, too powerful, too deeply woven into our fear of the unknown. The truth is, the Kraken is a mosaic, a composite nightmare assembled from all the real terrors the ocean had to offer. The primary piece of this mosaic is, without a doubt, the giant squid, Architeuthis dux. This is the creature that gave the legend its form. The writhing tentacles, the sheer, unbelievable size, the alien intelligence glimpsed in its enormous eyes. When sailors saw a pale, rubbery arm, thicker than a man's torso, slither over the railing of their ship, they weren't seeing a myth. They were seeing a real animal, an animal from a world so alien it might as well have been another planet. The carcasses that washed ashore, mangled and half-eaten, were the physical proof. They were the tangible evidence that something monstrous did, in fact, live down there. The giant squid was the Kraken's body. It was the flesh and bone, or rather, the flesh and chitin of the legend. But the giant squid alone doesn't complete the picture. The Kraken of legend was more than just a big squid. It was a force of nature. It was described as being the size of a floating island, capable of creating whirlpools that could swallow a fleet. This is where the other pieces of the puzzle fall into place. Imagine being a mariner in the 18th century, navigating the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic. You see a disturbance on the horizon. The water is churning, frothing, boiling. As you get closer, you see something colossal break the surface, a vast dark shape. And then you see it battling another behemoth, a sperm whale, its mortal enemy. From a distance, you wouldn't see two separate creatures. You would see one chaotic, titanic mass of thrashing limbs, snapping jaws, and roiling water. You would see the Kraken. The epic battles between sperm whales and giant squid, events we now know are a regular part of the deep-sea food chain, would have looked like the apocalypse to an ancient sailor. The whale, a creature they knew and respected, being dragged under by a tangle of serpentine arms. That single misinterpreted image is powerful enough to fuel nightmares for 1,000 years. It gives the Kraken its godlike power, its ability to challenge the largest living things in the sea. And what about the whirlpools? The island-like back? This is where the very ocean itself becomes part of the monster. The Kraken-like phenomena described by Bishop Pontoppidan, the sudden shoals of fish, the bubbling water, the shifting seabed, are eerily similar to the effects of undersea seismic activity. Underwater volcanoes, methane seeps, and sudden gas eruptions from the seafloor can cause the water to boil and churn violently. They can create navigational hazards and powerful, unpredictable currents that feel like the suction of a giant beast. They can even temporarily create new landmasses, islands that appear and disappear. The ocean itself was playing the part of the Kraken, lending its raw geological power to the biological terror of the squid. So the Kraken wasn't a single animal. It was a perfect storm of reality. It was the giant squid providing the body, the sperm whale battles providing the power, and the volatile geology of the ocean providing the apocalyptic, world-ending scale. It was a tapestry woven from every legitimate fear a sailor could have. Fear of the unknown creatures in the deep, fear of the ocean's unpredictable power, and the simple primal fear of being dragged down into the cold, dark water. But this brings us to the most important question of all: why? Why did this legend persist with such force? Why do we, even now, in an age of science and satellite imagery, remain so captivated by it? The answer is that we need the Kraken. We need it because the ocean is the last true wilderness on our own planet. It is a realm so vast and so hostile to our existence that more people have stood on the surface of the moon than have visited its deepest point. It is a place of crushing pressure, absolute darkness, and freezing temperatures. It is, by every definition, alien territory, and in the face of such a vast, intimidating unknown, the human mind does what it has always done. It populates the darkness with monsters. Monsters give a name and a face to our formless anxieties. It is somehow less terrifying to imagine a single, defeatable beast like the Kraken than it is to confront the sheer, indifferent emptiness of the abyss itself. The Kraken is the guardian at the gate of our own ignorance. It represents everything we don't know about our own world. The legend is a monument to our own humility. And the beautiful thing is, the spirit of the Kraken is not dead. It is alive and well. It lives on every time a deep-sea submersible switches on its lights and reveals a creature that defies all biological explanation. The goblin shark with its horrifying protrusible jaw. The vampire squid, which turns itself inside out to defend itself. The black swallower, a fish that can eat prey 10 times its own size. These are real-life monsters. They are nature's fever dreams brought to life in the deep. Each one is a small piece of the Kraken myth made real. A reminder that the ocean's capacity to create the bizarre and the terrifying is far from exhausted. The colossal squid, the ghost we just discussed, is perhaps the truest modern incarnation of the Kraken. A creature even larger and more powerful than the giant squid, armed with swiveling hooks on its tentacles, a true predator of the Antarctic abyss. We know it exists. We have the proof. Yet it remains a phantom. It carries the torch of the original legend. The idea that no matter how much we explore, no matter how advanced our technology becomes, there are still titans in the deep that live beyond our reach and understanding. In the end, the search for the Kraken was never about finding a monster. It was about the search itself. It's a story about human curiosity pushing back against the darkness. It's about our relentless drive to chart the unknown, to name the unnameable, and to understand the world around us. The Kraken isn't a failure of science. It's the very reason science exists. It's the ultimate what if, the ultimate question mark lurking in the deepest trenches of our planet and our minds. The Kraken was never just in the water. It was in us. It is the embodiment of our awe and our terror of the natural world. It is a symbol of the profound, humbling mystery that still covers over 70% of our planet's surface. So the next time you stand by the ocean, looking out at the endless expanse of water, listen. Listen past the sound of the waves. You might just hear the echo of an ancient legend, a story that reminds us that the world is still wide, still deep, and still full of monsters. And that is a wonderful and terrifying thing.